Hello, my name is Mike. This is one of my bikes. This is my 1999 Excelsior Henderson Super X, and it's not a Dodge Charger. How do I know it's not a Dodge Charger? Well, it doesn't look anything like a Dodge Charger, and seems to have a couple less wheels than a Dodge Charger. But the other way that I know it's not a Charger is the fact that, well, when I went to get on it the other day, it wouldn't start. And that's because the battery was really low. And that's because it's not charging the battery. Therefore, it is not a Charger. Now, I'm going to use the wrong part to fix it. So stick around.
Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels.
Right now, with everything turned off, my battery is showing 12.8 volts, which under normal circumstances would be pretty good. Remember, it is on a trickle charge now, so I'm going to go ahead and start it up. So the voltage actually dropped when it was running, and it should actually come up. Now, off camera, I revved it up because sometimes at idle it's pretty low. Usually when you rev it up to about 1500 to 2000 RPM, you'll see that voltage come up to around 13 volts. That's where it should be. 12.3, 12.4 is not enough to charge the battery. So we definitely don't have any charging going on. My guess is that it's the stator because, well, these Excelsior Hendersons, that was definitely one of their weak points. They're notorious for eating stators. So to confirm that it is the stator and not the voltage regulator, we need to measure the voltage actually coming out of the stator. On these vehicles, the voltage coming out is an AC voltage, 3-phase AC, and part of the job of the voltage regulator is to convert it from 3-phase AC into direct current. So not only does it control the amount of voltage, it changes the type of voltage. So what we're going to do is we're going to take apart this 3-wire connector here, and first we're going to check each of these 3 pins, make sure they're not shorted to each other or shorted to ground. There should be some resistance between them. It shouldn't be a very, very low resistance. It should have some value. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and start the motor again, and we're going to measure the voltage from phase to phase, phase to phase, phase to phase, all 3 combinations. And we should see anywhere from 20 volts to like 60 volts depending on engine RPM. Now this connector, it can be a real bear to get apart. In fact, in just the short time I ran the engine, these wires are real warm. It tells me something's not right. They do tend to get warm even under normal operation, but it shouldn't be that hot. And sometimes they'll get so hot it will actually melt the connector. I've seen that happen. It happened on my other bike, 901. I ended up replacing the stator and the voltage regulator on that one. So I'm grabbing this the best I can with pliers, and I cannot get it separated. Where's that little screwdriver? I'm off to a good start, losing tools already. That's, status quo. See if we can't persuade this apart. And I've literally cut these connectors off before, so that's just, so don't be surprised if it doesn't just unplug. This does not want to come apart. And just for the record, I have replaced the stator in this bike twice already. This connector just said no, I'm not coming apart. Lovely. Goodness. It's got a little thumb release thing. That's what I'm using the screwdriver for, because evidently my thumb is not depressing it enough, or it's just melted together. I'll give it one more try, and then I'm cutting wires, damn it. It is not. My pliers won't even grip it. Alright, team, we're cutting wires. I just wanted to show you what the meter would normally say. At first, we want to measure the resistance. A lot of times you'll just see a dead short and you'll know it's no good. Kind of the trick here is I only have one hand to do it with. Let me try to reposition my camera here so that you can see what I'm doing. It's I'm on the ground, you know. It's I don't have a lot of room to work. My workspace is pretty limited. Let's see here. This will position us. I got a little block of wood here. All right, so here's our wires. What we want to see is some resistance, and if I remember right, it's not a lot. It's like an ohm or something, and I don't want to touch both probes with my body because the resistance will measure my body. So my right hand, you'll notice, is not touching the connector. So right now it is reading, bouncing around, 1.1 ohm. Okay, that's one of the three combinations. On this one, reading 1.2 ohms. And then the last combination, which would be this wire and this wire, is also reading 1.1 ohms. So those look good. Let's see if we have a short to ground. So I want to ground this wire and then check each one to ground, make sure I don't have a short to ground as well. So there's a bolt there, and I've connected that wire to ground. Now I'm going to measure each one of these to ground. OL, which is what I should see. Infinite resistance, that means there is no conductive path to ground. This one also reads OL, and this one also reads OL. So that looks good. Those are normal readings. My stator may be actually okay, and the problem may actually be in this connector that I ended up having to cut out. It may have gotten so hot and built so much resistance that it was no longer conducting. So we're going to check for output, and if the output is good, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this connector out completely, butt splice it directly, and see if we get a charging system. If we're still not charging, then I probably have a bad regulator. All right, let's start it up and let's see what kind of voltage we get out of the system. Let's see if I can position the camera in such a way to I have no idea what's going on here. Here we go. Let me get my meter where y'all can sort of see it. All right, we're going to give it a start. Alright, what you didn't see me do is, off camera, because I only have two hands, I measured each combination of those three wires. These two, then these two, then these two. So there's three possible combinations, and I saw right around 28 volts to 30 volts at idle. If I revved it up, it went up to around 60 volts, And that's what you want to see. Just make sure your meter's set to AC voltage. Okay, I'm getting the proper amount of AC voltage out of the stator. I know my stator's good. No, I don't have to take the primary cover off. Okay, that's a good thing. But my problem most likely is, alright, so I've cut this connector out, and it's got that wonderful burnt electrical smell to it. I could not get this apart. It's melted together. I pretty much guarantee you. I'm going to go ahead and strip and butt splice those three phases together. Doesn't matter what connection combination you use. Each of the three phases, I mean, there's no sequence. There's no, it's not a DC circuit, it's AC, so it doesn't matter, and it's three-phase. So I digress again. Doing a lot of digressing here. Chances are the voltage regulator is still good, and it wasn't getting electricity across this. We'll splice them together. We'll see if it charges. If it doesn't charge, well, I'm going online to ehparts.net and ordering a voltage regulator. Wait, I might have one in stock. I do have some parts rattled away. I have to look. Anyway, pretty sure that's where we're going with this. Now, a lot of times I like to use those solder sticks. You guys have probably seen them advertised. I know some of the other YouTubers swear by them and use them, and they're great for most jobs. This particular job, I prefer the regular butt splice type connector. There's a reason for that. The type of solder they use in solder sticks is a fairly low temperature melting point solder. And it's great so you can use your torch or your cigarette lighter or whatever to get it to melt and solder the wires. But as warm as these wires get, it might actually get hot enough for that solder to remelt. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm not taking a chance. I've seen those wires get pretty hot. And after all, that's why we're replacing it. It got too hot. So we're using ordinary butt splices and good old-fashioned electrical tape to make our connection. Alright, I've used ordinary blue butt splice connectors. The wires just barely fit. So the yellow ones might have been more appropriate, but these work just fine. If you'll notice, I've crimped them in 4 places on each one. I want to make absolutely certain that they are crimped in there very solidly. They have good connection. They won't pull out easily. I'm going to throw some electrical tape around it, and we'll fire it up, see what happens. Nope. I'm going to have to put a voltage regulator in it. It's not charging. So I've got some bins over there, and I got a bunch of Excelsior Henderson parts in here. And, oh, looky there. Regulator. First part I pick up. And it's a voltage regulator that's had the wires cut off. So this was from my other bike, 901, when it had this very same problem once upon a time, and I ended up replacing both the stator, when the stator finally went out, as well as the voltage regulator. But I wouldn't have hung on to this unless this was good. So I got to splice the wires there. We'll find out here. Here we go, regulators. The voltage regulator that I had, that I thought was good, turned out also to not be any good. So I just cut the ends off of it, and I connected them to a Victory regulator that I have. And the only difference is that on the Excelsior Hendersons, for your positive and negative, so you can see that, you have 4 wires. You have 2 red wires, or 2 black with red, and then 2 black with white. You just simply combine them together. They go to the same place. So the 2 reds go together, the 2 blacks go together, and on the Victory you just have 1 hot and 1 ground. Here you have 2 hots, 2 grounds. Not a big deal. In this case, because the DC side doesn't get as hot, I used some some solder sticks, and they worked real well for connecting those wires. But again, when I put it on the bike, I used regular butt splices for the 3-phase AC side because it does run hotter. And so that's actually off of a Victory, but you'll notice coming into the connector, I'll see if you guys can see this. So the 2 red wires connect to the red on the Victory, and the 2 white wires, black with white, they go to the negative wire on the Victory regulator. So yeah, mixing and matching, and you know, they work the same way. So the only difference is going to be the plugs, the connectors, and ironically enough, the mounting bolt holes were in exactly the same location on the Victory regulator as they were on the Excelsior Henderson. Now, only time will tell how long this holds up, but it should hold up just fine. It's got plenty of airflow to keep it cool. Let's see if it charges the bike. Alright, so battery charge has been on it. The battery's up to 13 volts. Turn the key on, and you'll see the voltage drops just a little bit. And that's because of the load from the lights and the ignition system and so forth. Let's start her up. That voltage should rise upward. So, as long as you guys, if it had been the Stator, I would have taken the primary cover off and shown you how to do that. If you want to see how that's done, check with my buddy Bruce Whitefoot. He's got a YouTube channel. It's his name, Grumpy. Anyway, there'll be a link. Anyway, he goes into much more detail on repairs on these Excelsior Hendersons than I do. I just kind of want to show you guys how to check the charging system. This applies to both Victorys and Excelsior Hendersons and most Japanese bikes. You got 3-phase AC, know how to check those and see what they look like when they're functioning properly. And then coming out of your voltage regulator should simply be your 12-volt wires. One positive, one negative. The voltage regulators, what they're set to, is going to vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. So I won't tell you that every swap's going to work out as well as this Victory to Excelsior Henderson did, but they might. You know, and you got nothing to lose except your bike when it bursts into flames. So don't do as I do or say. Anyway, that's it for this video. See you on the next one.